Hi, this is Kara Pike Inman, and this is my discussion board for EDL 635. I'm going to start off by discussing the article about academic motherhood. This was one that really resonated with me, partly because I think I'm constantly in awe of people like Jen and Mary Ellen who are in our program who have multiple children, who somehow balance full-time work, being a full-time student, and being a mom. And also because I hope to be a mom within the next couple years, and so this was something I found particularly interesting. And I thought it was a good article in that it kind of balanced saying what the pros and cons of being an academic and a mother are, which is I also found interesting just because I've actually considered moving from kind of an administrative role to teaching full-time as a preferable option when I am a mom, largely due to the flexible schedule. And I've known moms who are professors who maybe teach only online for a year or two while their children are young, or who are able to have all their classes on only 2 days a week or only in the evenings to kind of balance with their spouse's schedule, or only having to put their kids in daycare a couple days a week. So I found it really interesting to kind of read the discussions on both sides of the issue. And I also guess would be interested just some of the numbers that were thrown out, that only 31% of female faculty have kids. And I guess I would love to see that in comparison with the total percentage of women who have kids. I would just be interested to be able to compare numbers, because they would throw out numbers, but they wouldn't necessarily say what the flip side was or what the national average was, and so it was hard to compare. With regard to the concept of satisficing, since that's what you specifically asked us to talk about, I know much of the discussion with that was kind of whether or not they cared about whether or not they got tenure, but I guess what this got me to thinking about is what really happens if you excel other than tenure. The way I feel like our academic system is set up is that if you excel and you're this brilliant scholar, there's not a lot of benefit. You're not necessarily getting a raise, to my knowledge. You may get an award, but there's not that many awards out there. You may get good student evaluations, but those aren't necessarily, to my knowledge, tied with any sort of incentive other than just feeling good about the work that you do. And I guess I feel that way about a lot of things in life. Like, I know in terms of satisficing, I know I've run a marathon or a half marathon. I've had these certain time goals that I wanted to achieve. And afterwards I'm like, you know what, if I would have done this 2 hours slower, I still would have been able to say I did it. So why does it really matter that I excelled, or for me excelled? I don't know. The whole concept of satisficing is something I think we all do in our normal life, so it wasn't something unique to this population. And looking at some of the other arguments in the article, I loved that it said that, moms who are also academics or who also work have to become more efficient and organized. And even though I'm not a mom, since I've been doing multiple jobs for this last 8 months or so, even just that, having to have that kind of that role conflict theory that it talked about, how commitment to multiple roles can lead to incompatible or excessive role expectations and all that. I feel like I've experienced that trying to be an instructor for several classes, trying to be an assistant director of education abroad, trying to be a director, trying to be part of our business manager role, trying to be a student, trying to be a wife. And I've had to become more efficient and organized, over this last amount of time. I've become like the crock pot wizard. If you need a crock pot recipe, ask me, because I've become quite good at it, because that's been one of my ways I've had to become more efficient and organized. And I also think part of this is that maybe we need to work on some gender role things about having men take greater responsibility as parents and spouses. And it said, women still do the bulk of the work around the house, and I don't know that it needs to be that way. But anyways, to touch quickly on one of the other articles, on the one about non-tenure track, while the idealistic side of me would like to think that maybe we're hiring more non-tenure instructors because maybe they have a specialization. Part of me would like to think that the reason I teach a course in intercultural communication is because I work in international education, and I've been to 38 countries, and I've worked with a lot of different cultures, and so maybe I have more specialized and firsthand knowledge in that field and in that subject area than somebody who only has kind of academic or scholarly knowledge. I would like to think that, but maybe not. I think part of it, being more realistic, is the expendability. I know this year in the Comm Studies department, given that I was doing multiple roles, I said, hey, you know what, I can't teach one of my 3-credit comm classes this spring, so I'm only teaching 2 1-credit classes, an honors and a comm. And that ended up being good, because when I spoke with the department chair later on, he says, it worked out well that you weren't going to be able to teach, because I was going to have to let somebody go, and it would obviously be a non-tenure track person who wasn't going to get to teach. So I guess the expendability when finances come into play. And, I think part of it also is disorganization. It seems like they were saying, oh, they have these strategic hiring plans, but they don't follow them. Well, what's the point of having the plan? And I know the first year I was asked to teach my 3-credit upper level comm class, I was told very last minute that it would be happening. I didn't know any of the processes. I was basically asked, hey, what textbook do you want to use? We need to order them today. And I didn't even know what the options were. So I was doing kind of some of what we talked about my very first year, of just staying 1 or 2 chapters ahead of the students. And there were some of those chapters I definitely would not have used had I, and I didn't ever use that textbook again, and to be honest, had I had more time. So I think some of it is definitely just disorganization. Anyways, I look forward to hearing everybody else's perspective. Hope you all had a great week.